Hey guys, Geeky Fam here with some update on Spider-Man, how Marvel can still use Tom Holland in the future. So let's talk about it.
Spider baby, shoot some spider webs.
Thank you. Basically, I'm making this video in the wake of the news that Sony says for now the door is closed on the Sony-Disney renegotiation contracts, which is a sad thing. However, there is some good news. As part of Tom Holland's work with Sony, it doesn't seem that there's a non-compete agreement to some degree for him to work at Disney at the same time that he's working at Sony. So that is the first piece of good news. I'm going to break this all down top 5 style. So starting with number 5, we know that Disney can still use Tom Holland and does in fact employ him. This is the case with the new Disney Pixar movie Onward, in which he's a voice actor. So far he doesn't have a non-compete agreement with Sony. And his current contract with Sony is going at least another 2 years, probably, whatever it takes before they finish making Spider-Man 3. So Disney could employ him in the meantime. 4, Disney can and still does use the Spider-Man IP in other ways. In fact, it made additional money off of the merchandise due to the Sony movies in which Spider-Man appeared. 3, Disney specifically can and does use Spider-Man in television. Case in point, Marvel's Spider-Man, or simply Spider-Man, premiered on Disney XD. It's an animated series with both Peter Parker Spider-Man and a Miles Morales Spider-Man who cross over. And they actually just renewed for a 3rd season entitled Marvel's Spider-Man Maximum Venom, which was announced just this past May for a spring 2020 release. So then number 2, Sony had some TV rights separate from the movie rights that reverted when Spectacular Spider-Man was cancelled. So that does bring us to an interesting question. Are all of the Spider-Man TV rights back with Disney?
Spider baby, you're so spider energetic. I think you need a spider now.
And so number 1, it stands to reason that Disney could employ Tom Holland, and since they can use Spider-Man in TV, they could potentially have a Tom Holland Spider-Man on the TV side even if not cinematically. There may be a caveat to this, such as if in Tom Holland's original contract, it was agreed upon that Tom Holland could not portray Spider-Man for any studio on the TV side other than Sony. But there's a couple ways that Disney might be able to take advantage of that, even with that caveat. So number 1, if there's a Spider-Verse, that is a multiverse style episode on one of their existing TV series, such as the Disney XD Spider-Man cartoon, they could cameo a Tom Holland Spider-Man crossing over with their existing Peter Parker and Miles Morales, as long as there's no ties to the MCU in it specifically, even though in an ambiguous and open-ended way somebody could imagine that. Number 2, in their What If series, they have an equal number of episodes planned to the number of movies in the Infinity Saga. Well, that's 23 of them. Each of the episodes is supposed to be a twist on an MCU movie, like what if Peggy Carter received the super soldier serum and Steve Rogers had an early Iron Man suit made for him by Howard Stark. So we have 2 standalone Spider-Man movies that's part of the 23 count and 3 other movies where he made cameos. In theory, therefore, we could still see Tom Holland Spider-Man, at least in these episodes, since they are part of a streaming series, Disney Plus, rather than movies. So at the time that I was making this video a few days ago, I couldn't find the Sony TV rights contract details anywhere. But when I searched again this evening, I tried using different keywords or something, and boom, all of a sudden it showed up. Screen Rant had found the leaked contract at some point, and they shared it in this article that they published a few days ago. And so basically here's how it breaks down. So Sony has the live-action TV series rights, Sony has the live-action and animated movies rights, and then Sony has the animated series with episodes longer than 44 minutes rights. So back in 2009, basically they let their rights to the TV go in exchange for some additional liberties with the licenses for the Spider-Man movies in particular. So if you're looking at what movie was in production at that time, you know that's Spider-Man 4, which Sam Raimi was originally working on at the time. But long story short, they said, okay, well you can have the animated series rights for anything less than 44 minutes moving forward, and you'll just give us these little licenses or liberties here. And Marvel said, done. So that would in fact confirm that Spider-Man can be in the What If series. Now there is something really interesting about this, because the way that Spider-Man left off, where he's going to need legal aid or legal counsel, it would stand to reason that he would need a lawyer in the Marvel Universe to assist him. So a lot of people back a couple months ago were saying, oh, well, that's how they could introduce Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock, Daredevil into the MCU. But with those characters' rights still on hold, there's another idea.
let's say the What If series gets continued for a second season. Well, there's another famous lawyer in the MCU, and that is Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk. So probably for a while, Marvel Studios was thinking about making a She-Hulk movie, but they couldn't necessarily get Universal to play nice with them. And so maybe because Disney Plus is streaming, they thought, aha, we can introduce her in a live series show where, because it falls under TV, we still have the rights to that. She can be the headlining name, the solo act, the primary protagonist, and then we can have her cross over to the MCU, which should be a supporting cast member, just like Mark Ruffalo's The Hulk was. Isn't it interesting how, due to this TV loophole, so to speak, they can make a She-Hulk MCU-based series now, and similarly, because of this loophole with Spider-Man having TV rights, and you can technically get the same kind of cast that works on the movie side to work on the TV side, you could also have Spider-Man appear on Disney Plus, specifically within the What If series. So what if they had like Season 2 of What If, Episode 1, take place in an alternate reality where Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk has to defend him in court? That would be kind of a cool idea or take that they could do on it. And both of them have sort of that fourth wall Easter egg that binds them in common. Just a thought I had. Other than that, is Marvel really going to want to risk just having him limited to these like half-hour animated series or 43 minutes or less and cause these continuity issues, especially if they regain the rights to Spider-Man? There's one of two ways they could play it. They could either play that the Sony Spider-Man comes into the MCU universe after they get the rights back again, or they could make it that if they get the rights back again, that their MCU version of Spider-Man from the animated side was the true continuity of Spider-Man Far From Home onward, and anything that happened in the Sonyverse after that is basically just disregarded as having happened in an alternate universe. And then they can bring Tom Holland back live action, picking up off the heels of where they left off with him animated. But realistically, probably what they're going to do is they're going to either wait until they get a sharing arrangement again or get the full rights back to Spider-Man if Sony gets bought off, if they buy off the movie rights back for Spider-Man and everything, or if they come to another sharing arrangement. So guys, tell me down below in the comments, would you like to see Tom Holland Spider-Man continue in the MCU animated for a little while until they can continue doing live action? And would you like it to be the same continuity within the MCU if you want them to take a break and then just have them come back just live action once they get those full rights or sharing arrangement again next time? Would you like them to retcon everything from the Sonyverse into there when they get the rights back? Whether they could refer to this directly or indirectly, like maybe they could have them say things like, oh yeah, I made all these new friends when I was gone and everything, but technically I guess he could, if they got the rights back to all of the Spider-Verse, they could even reference like Venom and stuff like that. It just wouldn't necessarily have to reference that it was part of that film canon, but it could be like that soft reboot where they had from the Eric Bana Hulk into the Incredible Hulk movie, and they kind of pretended like it was in the same continuity, but it was a soft reboot / sort of sequel, even though technically the Incredible Hulk was the first one in the MCU canon. So maybe they could do something similar. So would you like to see Spider-Man's story in the Spider-Verse be retconned back into and carried back into MCU live action once they get his rights back? Or would you like to see just for them to start where they left off with his last MCU appearance? Regardless of whether you or I, or even Disney or Sony or Marvel, think this is a good idea or not, one thing that we can say for sure is that Marvel legally can still have animated Spider-Man for these 43 minutes or less in the MCU canon, even if it's just only in the What If series. Whether Tom Holland can voice act for that or not, we don't have access to the details or the full length of Tom Holland's contract. So we can't say 100% definitively, but if there's nothing in his contract that's preventing him, then legally they can. Whether they will take advantage of that or not is another thing. I personally think it's a good idea to at least have him in the What If series, because with that it's not technically canon, it's all, what if. So absolutely. The only impediment potentially could be, if Sony says, hey Tom Holland, we don't want you to do this for Marvel, and then come back to us while you're working for us the entire time. So that's just going to be something that Tom Holland and Sony would have to hash out amongst themselves, but I think it would be great if Tom Holland continued to be in the Spider-Verse, being Venom 2, have his own Sony Spider-Man 3 crossover within these live-action Lord Miller shows, and also be in the What If series, so that there's a feeling of continuity in both and something to tide us over before he fully becomes an integrated Marvel Studios Spider-Man again. Guys, if you like this video, once again, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Please hit the notification bell if you want to get notified when I come out with new videos. I will be doing a video soon on Namor the Submariner and how he might be coming into the MCU. Click here if you want to see my other video on the Lord Miller live-action Spider-Man TV series, shows that we know are in development, plus what we have any sort of evidence or speculation for. Click here if you want to listen to either the first track that you heard in this video in the background or the second instrumental track. And as always, thank you so much guys for watching. All the best, and we'll do this again soon.